So you've got a script you want to shoot, and you want to decide if you want to shoot it on digital or you want to shoot it on film. Today we're going to talk about the expense of shooting on film versus digital, and we're going to break down how you can be as efficient as possible on your film shoot. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. Film costs more money than digital. I know people go, no, but if you do this, this, and this, and blah, blah, blah. No. Film costs more than digital. I don't care what anybody says. It's always going to cost more. And the reason why is quite simple. I can buy a Blackmagic pocket camera for $449 on eBay right now. I can buy a lens for it for $200, and I can go out and I can shoot over and over and over and over again for months and months and months, for years and years and years, and it's not going to cost me another dime to operate that camera. Well, I can go on eBay and I can buy an Elmo Super 8 camera for the same exact price, and not this one, but yeah, you get my point. And I can shoot with that camera, but every single time I put film in it, I get 1.5 minutes of 24 frames a second, and it's going to cost me, I don't know, $70, $80 to get 1.5 minutes out of it every single time I want to use it. So you do the math. Like, duh, it costs more money to shoot film. So why do people shoot film? Different subject. I don't care about that right now. We're not talking about that. Today, breaking scripts down, figuring out how much it's going to cost to shoot your movie. The first thing I do is I take my script and I get a round table together with people and I have them read the script and I time it with a stopwatch. And that's going to give me an idea how long the script really is. So a 90-page script that's mostly dialogue might be a 95-minute movie or maybe a 100-minute movie. A 95-page script that has, a little bit of dialogue, but a lot of description might be even a little bit shorter because those descriptive shots might be even faster than the dialogue. It really depends. So if you can get a stopwatch out in a group of friends and can read the script nice and slowly and really dial it in and stopwatch it, you'll have an idea of how many minutes your final piece is going to be. And that's where you start the whole process from. So all my math that I do is done from the perspective of a 90-minute script, okay? That means when it's been read, it's 90 minutes long, because that math is really easy to deal with. So a 90-minute movie is then going to have what's called a shooting ratio. Now, a lot of people don't understand what that is because they shoot digitally and they just keep on shooting and shooting and shooting. But back in the day, you had to figure out your shooting ratio first. There's a lot of argument about what the lowest ratio you can shoot with. But in my opinion, the lowest ratio you should think about shooting is 5:1. So that means you're going to shoot 5 times the amount of material that is going to be in your final piece. And why didn't you shoot 5:1 or higher? Well, the trick here is that you need to be able to do the cross coverage. So you need to be able to do your medium and your close-up and your master wide. And if you got 2 people, you have to cover both sides. Sometimes you might do insert shots and it's just one take. Okay, great. Well, now you don't have to worry about that. But there's a compensation on the ratio. So sometimes your ratio is going to be 10:1. Sometimes the ratio is going to be 3:1. But it's going to average out to 5:1. 5:1 is the lowest ratio I suggest anybody shooting, especially in motion picture film, because you do want to do multiple takes in case something's wrong with the camera, and you do want to do cross coverage. You've got to make sure you do cross coverage because if you don't do a lot of coverage, your film's going to look like it's not professionally done. I've been down this road, I know all about it, and the more coverage you have, the better. So a 5:1 ratio is kind of the bare minimal. I try to shoot 10:1 ratio because with 10:1 you can do a lot more takes and you have a little bit more freedom in the way you work your actors. And that's kind of the hard part because with 5:1 you're very, very tight. You might be able to only do 1 take master wide and 2 takes close up and that's it, right? A take with one person, a take with another person, so you've got 3 takes for one scene. Well, what if there's a flub line on that close-up and you have to use the wide? You can't do that. You really need to be very careful and be able to do multiple takes, especially with those close-ups, because if you do have a flub line or an issue, you need to have some coverage to cover it up with. So you have to be very, very careful about that. So I suggest 2 takes on close-ups and mediums, and then 1 or 2 master wides to get your scene, to get your dialogue scene done. Another way to get around this is to shoot something a little more artistic and have 2 people talking to each other in a master wide and just do 2 takes of that master wide. That is an easier way of saving film, but it looks less professional when you do it that way. Professional films have a lot of coverage, and that's why they look professional. That's why you recognize them as movies, is because they have that coverage. If they didn't have that coverage, you would recognize them as something a little more low budget. Now that you know that your ratio is going to be 10 to 1 for a larger production, let's look at some actual numbers because I think that this is super important to understand for people. My numbers, again, are going to be broken down by 90-minute feature, and we're going to do a 30-minute short film as well. So we're just talking about stock cost, processing, and transfer. Those are the only three things we care about. And my pricing is average, okay? It's not going to be exactly what the price is. It's going to be an average price because sometimes you can get deals on things and sometimes you can't. So it's an average price between full retail of everything and the lowest price possible because you will find an average of that when you go out to different labs. So for a 90-minute script, super 16 millimeter, 10 to 1 ratio, you're going to be shooting 36,000 feet of film, and your total cost is going to be $45,000. So that's your stock cost, your processing, and your transfer all included in that. So that's not bad. 45 grand for feature film on Super 16, that's pretty doable. There's very few people who are going to come to you and going to go, no, we can't afford another $45,000. It's affordable, right? So let's look at 35 millimeter. And this is where things kind of get a little bit tricky. So, and this number kind of is a big shocker. So for 3 perf, same figures for 3 perf, you're going to shoot 72,000 feet of film versus 36,000 feet of film. Remember that 3 to 1 ratio I was talking about. And it's going to cost $117,000 to make your movie. $117,000 just for processing, stock, and transfer. That's it. So that's a lot more money. That's 3 perf. I don't even have 4 perf numbers in here because they're just too crazy outrageous. Let's look at 2 perf because you want to save a little bit of money. So with 2 perf, you're going to shoot 52,000 feet of film, and it's going to be $85,000. So again, you're looking at double the cost of Super 16, which is what we talked about earlier, and you're looking at a good solid $40,000 less than 3 perf, right? And that's why 3 perf is 3 times the amount of money. So those are kind of the breakdowns that I have for shooting on film that kind of are important to think of because, 10 to 1 ratio is a good way to start. Good way to do your math because then you can negotiate. You can go, okay, well, we might only need a 5 to 1 so we can cut our price down, but that's a good way to start. And that documentation's on our school's website, cellulardreaming.com. You can check that out, and you're going to see some documentation on there, and it lists all the pricing and everything. And again, it's an average price. Full retail is going to be more than that, but again, very few people pay full retail on a 90-minute movie. If you're going to be processing, 80,000 feet of film in a lab, they're going to cut you a deal, no matter what. So that deal's worked into that price. We assume that deal's going to happen. So with short films, it's all the same way. It's just that with short film, it's going to cost a lot less money. Now, I do have some short film breakdowns, but they're 30-minute short films, and very few people do those nowadays. They usually do like 10-minute short films. And for me, because I've done a lot of those 10-minute short films, the cost can be really variable. With 16 millimeter, you could maybe get some stock from a friend and maybe get a camera from a friend and maybe get some processing for cheap because it's educational discount. And there's a lot of things you can do with short films to kind of save and extract as much money as you can. But the script breakdown is the same thing. It's all done the same way. I do suggest if you are going to shoot a short film on 16 or 35 that you talk to the labs in advance, tell them that it's a small student project, tell them that you are going to shoot X amount of film and that you want to try to get a discount for the whole thing, and the labs will help you out. They really will. I don't know any lab that wouldn't help out in the pricing for someone just shooting a couple rolls of film. It's as long as you're not shooting 1 roll of film, you're going to be okay. With those 1 rolls of film, they're not going to help very much. That's just the price is the price. It's the retail price. But with a short movie that's many more than 1 rolls of film, you're probably going to get a good deal. So the other subject matter when it comes to breaking down a script is what film stock to use. This is really critical because a lot of people don't realize that the different stocks actually have completely different looks. And so you really want to be careful what you do. Now, for me, I generally go for a finer grain look. I don't much like the 500T look. It's too grainy for me. And where I do use it, especially on 35 millimeter, I do use it sometimes in 16, and if you process it very, very fast and you transfer it at high resolution, it can look okay, it's fine, it's passable, but I prefer the finer grain stocks. I would rather light a scene properly, okay, with lights like this, and shoot 200T, than light a scene poorly and shoot with 500. It's just the way I am. Exterior, my go-to stock is 250D, and the reason why is because you can shoot all day with that stock. You can shoot when the sun's up, you can shoot when the sun's almost down in the evening, you can shoot sunrises, and it's one stock. And all you do is just filter it to get what you want stop-wise. I generally 1.5 ND almost all of my 250D. It's just the way I do it. 50D is a great stock too, but 50D is not great for sunsets and sunrises. You're kind of stuck in that midday thing, you know? So I stay away from 50D unless I know it's like a big midday scene, then I'll shoot it. 200T is my go-to for indoor stuff. So when I'm shooting indoors, I know I can light for 200T, no problem at all. Even if I take 200T and push it one stop in the lab to get it to be 500, the grain between that and 500T is the same. So like if I get to set and I go, oh my gosh, I can't light this, but I'm going to shoot 200T, and it's only a couple rolls of film, like maybe 3 or 4 rolls of film, okay, whatever. I'll just push process it in the lab, I'll shoot it for 500, and it'll come out fine. And it does. It comes out just like 500T. There's really not much of a difference. It's just a finer grain stock if you can light for 200. And then I reserve 500 for those moments where I really need it, where I cannot light for some reason, where I'm in an area where I cannot afford to put lights. I'm going to light with natural lighting, or it's a night scene, and I'm going to use just street lights or whatever as natural lighting. Then I shoot 500T. In fact, in my big scene from End of Life at the end of the movie, we had a 4K light, and it was way too much. It was a huge mistake to do that. I thought I could put the light out in the distance somewhere, and I screwed up. And I could have lit that scene with a very, very small light. And in fact, when we reshot the end of that scene's close-up, we ended up using 2 LED lights and 200T stock outdoors at night. Now, it wasn't the best idea. It was the only stock I had. Had I roll a 500, I would have shot that, but it came out okay. You know, it came out, the blacks are very, very rich. There's not a lot of detail outside of the face and outside of areas that are lit, but it's a beautiful shot anyway, and it works in the film because the film's just a short film for fun, so it's not a big deal. If it was a bigger production, I would have definitely shot 500. But I didn't need to go any further with it. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to light too much. And that 4K light I bought was just way too much. It was just stupid to do that. You don't need as much light for 500 as you think you do. And the same with 200T. You need to go out, you need to experiment. You need to get your DSLR, set it to 200 ISO, set it to 1/48th of a second, and just start shooting stuff. And you will see that with 200T, you can get away with very little lighting. You really can. And that fine grain stock is so beautiful. It's one of P.T. Anderson's favorite stocks. So the way we break it down on set is that we take the script and we break down, interior versus exterior, day versus night, right? Very, very simple. And we can break all that down. You put it on a spreadsheet. And you take that spreadsheet and you basically section it off into, you take that spreadsheet and you section it off into sections of stock. So you go, okay, this is a 3 pages interior nighttime, and when your location scout happens, you're going to be able to find out if you can shoot 200 or 500. Most of the time, sadly, you're going to probably shoot 500 because the interior locations are just not going to be bright enough, and you're not going to have the money to bring in a big light. So you're just going to say, forget it, we'll shoot 500. And you're just going to go ahead, you're going to write down 500. And then you're going to do all that for your interior scenes, and you're going to go, well, this one I can shoot fine, so that's a 200 shot. Some interior scenes, when the sunlight's coming in, you can just shoot daylight stock, it's fine. I shoot tons of interior with 250D, it's totally fine. And so you can get away with shooting 250D inside if you light it very well. And then you're gonna use your 250D also for exterior. So a lot of my shows, when I break it down by stock, right, interior and what stock I'm gonna use interior, what stock I'm gonna use exterior, you can then find out how many rolls you're gonna shoot based on those scenes. So again, if you say it's 2 pages, and you can read those pages out, and you're going to go, oh, it's 2 pages, but it's actually 3 minutes worth of material, then you can go, okay, that's 3 minutes. It's a 10-to-1 ratio at 3 minutes, and that's going to equal how much film I'm going to need to shoot that one moment out. And your spreadsheet's going to have listed on it how many feet you're going to shoot for that exact scene, right? It's that simple. And then what stock you're going to shoot. So you'll have an Excel spreadsheet that lists every single scene in the film broken down by the amount of feet you're going to shoot and the type of stock you're going to shoot. And in a lot of cases, you'll also break it down by, on 35 millimeter at least, 400-foot loads or 1,000-foot loads, and you'll also break it down by MOS or sync sound. Because sometimes you might do a non-sync sound scene that's just a close-up of a hand, and you can do that while the crew is doing other things. And I do that a lot in my films, where we'll be shooting an insert shot with an MOS camera while my sync sound camera is being set up on a different location. Because a lot of times you have 2 cameras on set. Now, with low budget films, I understand it, but I always like to keep an MOS camera around just for that exact purpose. Because believe it or not, when you break down most movies, it's not wall-to-wall dialogue. And those MOS scenes can be shot while the crew's doing other things. Interestingly enough, if you were going to order 80,000 feet for your feature film of 35mm stock, Kodak would actually run that off for you. They would actually make you that stock for your movie. So if you do want to make a feature on 35mm and you do need a lot of stock, you need to contact them well in advance, at least a month or 2 in advance, and say, hey, I'm doing a feature on 35mm and I want to buy 80,000 feet of stock and these are the dates I need it for, and they will actually make the stock for you. In fact, you can get your cans labeled differently or anything you want, really, as long as you purchase that stock. So that's one thing to think about. With 16mm, you don't need as much stock to do a feature, right? So 36,000 feet of film is not the end of the world. They probably have that sitting around. You're probably going to be okay with that. But with 35mm, you're shooting, 65, 70,000 feet or more. Yeah, you're going to want to call them and you're going to want to make sure they have it in inventory because they might not. And they're definitely going to make it for you. And then you're going to want to call your lab and you're going to want to set that up in advance. You're going to want to get an account with them because you're going to be processing hopefully daily if possible and transferring daily because you don't want to overload them with a lot of film and sit around. You want to process right after you shoot it, so you want to do daily if possible. And then you want to get those dailies back to ensure that everything's good. So those are 2 very important things to think about when shooting on motion picture film versus digital where you can watch it right away. I think that there's a lot more we can talk about this, and I hope that if you have any questions, you can go to the comment section and you can go ahead and ask me right there, or you can go ahead and hit me up on my website, cellularandreaming.com, and you can email me directly. Great place to find me. And thanks for watching this video, and I will see you next time.